Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
And what an unusual and interesting Shabbat. We have hit a minyan. Just made it today, which is great. But we're also fortunate we have in double duty. Samson is not only going to be our producer, allowing us to broadcast what we're doing, but he's also doing his second round as a soloist. So we're looking forward to that. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Samson is actually the first male soloist we've had in 22 years that I've been here. So this is great. So we begin with Tov Uvracha, good and blessing. We come together as a community, and it's good to check in and see how everybody's doing. So let's begin with, does somebody have something nice happen to them in the past week that they'd like to share with the community? Doesn't have to be a big deal. Yes, Steve.
We got Adam tested for COVID so he could go to camp.
Very good.
Weekend.
All right.
He got a negative test result back. Yes, mommy and daddy vacation is now on.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I'm sure that there is a collateral vacation associated with that. So there are multiple good things happening. Jake, yes.
I'm going to camp.
You too are going to camp. Are you going to Green or someplace else?
It's actually in the Debt Civic Center.
Oh, very nice. That'll be wonderful. That's good. Who else has a good and blessing to report?
I have a very minor one.
It doesn't matter. It's the ability to find the good in your life. What is it?
I made a strawberry pound cake, and it turned out perfectly.
That is no minor matter.
Good texture.
Right. Now, what is that? That is now actually created a state of obligation, because now you have to make some for us and bring it to us, okay? If you've done it once perfectly, your sophomore effort, it's got to be good. So Shabbat Shalom, welcome. Who else has something good and blessing to report? Anybody? No? Okay. Well, I'm going to say two things. First of all, Robin and I and Avi had a fantastic little vacation trip to New Mexico. I ate my fill of green chili, and we got to see friends and relatives, and we even got to oversee and review the new boyfriend for one of Robin's oldest friends, and he seems like a nice person. So that is all for the good, right? That's our function in all of this. But it is also delightful to see the family back again. And so we're going to offer the blessing that we have offered to everyone who has reappeared after an extended absence. And it goes like this: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam mechayeh hametim. Praised are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who revives the dead. All right? You laugh. Everyone laughs. But in fact, that is the traditional Jewish response to someone you haven't seen for over a year. So there you go. All right. We all face uncertain fates, especially in the past year, but now we're coming back together finally, and that's awesome. So taking on the role for a second time, I'm going to invite Samson up. If you could get us started with the Nigun. All right.
Good Shabbos, everybody.
So actually, it just occurs to me, when you spend hours and hours driving across West Texas, you think about things. And I have been thinking about what we do with Tov Uvracha. And when I was in Albuquerque, I went to a service there, and you always get to see how people do things a little differently. They also do a tovu v'racha, a chance for the community to talk about the things happening. They do it a little later. They do it with announcements that may seem a little more logical, but in any case, but then they conclude with a shehekianu. Now, I have to say, I wasn't enthusiastic for that. A shehekianu is for something that has happened for the first time in at least a year. And, if someone's talking about how great the pastrami sandwich was this week, it's not quite fitting that category. So instead, on the road in West Texas, it occurred to me that there is another bracha that appears in the Talmud that I think is a good way to conclude good and blessing. And it goes like this: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hatov v'hametim, which means, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, who is good and does good. And in the Talmud, it says that when something good happens to you, you should say this, but only if there's something good associated with someone else. Right? So I think when we come together as a community, maybe this is the bracha we should use when we close out good and blessing. All right. Now, it gets more complicated as we get later, and suddenly it becomes narrowed down to drinking a second glass of wine. We're not going to talk about that. That's Jewish OCD stuff. All right. So with that, it's time for us to kindle the Shabbat lights and to begin. And I'm going to invite up Sarah to kindle for us. We're going to be on page 1. Page 1.
When the Spirit of God hovered over the darkness, God's first creation was light. Every human needs Shabbat light. We attest to the majesty of God's work and rejoice in its beauty. Light is a symbol of divinity and creative goodness. It is the outward sign of that inner spark which God has granted each of us. In hope and with love, we now welcome Shabbat with light.
Amen.
Praise are you, Adonai, whose presence fills the world, who hallows us with mitzvot and inspires us to kindle Shabbat light.
May God bless us with Shabbat joy. May God bless us with Shabbat holiness. May God bless us with Shabbat peace. Amen. Well, we do have a fair number of visitors, so just let me orient you to this is the Kol Ami Siddur, and if you're using it, you'll notice that there is English, there's Hebrew on one side, there's a transliteration in the English alphabet on the other side, and if you're just baffled at what's going on, there's actually notes at the bottom to explain each of the prayers, so hopefully that's useful to you. All right, so we're going into Kabbalat Shabbat. We are going to welcome the Sabbath with a small series of blessings and reciting of Psalms. And we're going to begin with Psalm 95. Is that good? Yeah. All right, come on up. Lechuna Ranina.
Lechuna Ranina, Lechuna Ranina, Lechuna Ranina, Ladonai. Lechuna Ranina, Lechuna Ranina, Lechuna Ranina, Ladonai. Naria, Naria, Litzor Yishenu, Nikad Mafana Betoda. Naria, Naria, Litzor Yishenu, Bizimro Naria Lo, Lechunaranena, 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 Ladonai, Lechunaranena, 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 Ladonai.
In English from the middle of Psalm 96, let the heavens rejoice and the earth exult. Let the sea and all within it thunder. The fields and everything in them exult. And then shall the trees of the forest shout for joy at the presence of Adonai. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly and its peoples faithfully. Psalm 97. Or Zeruach leTzadik v'Yishrei lev simcha. Adonai reigns, let the land exult and the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds surround God, righteousness and justice are the foundation of God's throne, and God's lightning illumines the world. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you who are righteous, rejoice in Adonai and acclaim God's holy name. Would you lead us in Psalm 99?
Yep.
We're getting this worked out together between us.
So Ramemu, Psalm 99. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtakavu lehakocho. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtakavu lehakocho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtakavu lehakocho. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtakavu lehakocho.
I'm going to continue now and take up a little bit of trope here with Psalm 29. Havu l'Adonai b'nei elim, havu l'Adonai kavod v'oz, havu l'Adonai kavod shemo, ishtachavu l'Adonai b'hadrat kodesh, Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Ascribe to Adonai, you children of God. Ascribe to Adonai glory and strength. Ascribe to Adonai the glory of God's name, and worship Adonai in the beauty of holiness. May Adonai give strength to this people. May Adonai bless this people with peace. Now we come to the culmination of our welcoming of the Sabbath with Lecha Dodi. We do have a proviso, however, and that is our traditional practice of closing and opening the doors in order to welcome the Sabbath won't work because the door has been damaged. So we are not going to designate anyone to be our ushers today, but we will still turn to welcome the Sabbath Queen into our midst. Page 7, Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Ishmi'anu el ham-yuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemu tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, P'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, Ki hi mekor habracha, mirosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machshavat hilha. Lecha Dodi Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitori, Kiva Umi Ori, Yori, Shiedaberi, Kevod Adonai Hayik Nigla, Lechadodi Likat Kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam besimcha utola, Lohem uneham segula, Boi chala, Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela.
So come in peace, you crown of your husband, with rejoicing and with joy. To those who are faithful, a treasured people, come, O Sabbath, come, O bride. Psalm 92. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat tov lehodot l'Adonai ulzamir l'shimcha elyon. A psalm, a song for Shabbat. It is good to give thanks to Adonai and to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night, with a harp, with vine and lyre in unison. Sadiq katama yifrach v'kerez v'levanon yizgeh. And the righteous, they shall bloom like a palm. They shall thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. We continue our transition now to the evening service with the Hatzi Kaddish.
Yitkada v'yitkadash meraba,
Amen.
V'yamad evrach yirotev yamlik makute, Lecha yechan huv yomechan, huv kayede kol bet Yisrael, Bagala, huv izman kariv, v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevara, Li'alamu me'amalia, Yitbarak, v'yitprabak, v'yitpa, v'yitraman, v'yitnaseh, v'yithada, v'yithale, v'yithalal, shemei d'kedusha, B'richu, Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbichata v'nechemata, Damiran b'yama, v'yimeru, amen.
For some of us, it's easy to rise in body. For some of us, it makes more sense to rise in spirit. But however, please rise for the Baruch.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach,
Baruch Adonai
Hamvorach, Le'olam va'ed.
We continue now by celebrating the natural order, thanking God for the cycles of day and night. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma potech sha'arim u'vidvuna meshane itim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'msader et hakokavim, b'mishmerotehem b'rakia kirotzono. Orei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'hoshech mipnei or, u'ma'avir yom u'mevi layla, u'ma'avdil ben yom u'ven layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. Adonai of hosts is the creator of day and night, causing day and night to alternate. May God govern us always to the ends of time. Praised are you, Adonai, who makes the evening fall. And you are full of love. Unending is your love for your people, the house of Israel, Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts you have taught us. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and rejoice in your Torah and mitzvot forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life and the length of our days. And then your love shall never depart from our hearts. Blessed is Adonai, who loves the people Israel.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated. And we're going to continue the theme of love with the Via Hafta, but we're going to do it in English together tonight. So if you would join me. You shall love Adonai your God with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your being. And these words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart. Teach them diligently to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be a symbol before your eyes. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. So shall you dedicate yourselves to your God. I, Adonai, am your God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I, Adonai, am your God. And the unending theme of Jewish gratitude is the memory that we were once slaves in the land of Egypt, and now we are free. We revisit that again and again, and we do so here with Emet ve'emunah. True and enduring, beloved, precious, awesome, good, and beautiful is this eternal teaching. This truth we hold to be forever certain. Adonai is our ruler, the rock of Jacob, shield of our salvation. Adonai our God, you redeemed us from Egypt. You set us free from the house of bondage. For this, the people who felt your love sang songs of praise to you. Living God, high and exalted, mighty and awesome, who humbles the proud, raises the lowly, who frees the captive and redeems the oppressed, who is the answer to those who cry out. All praise to God Most High, the source of blessing. Like Moses and Israel, we sing this song of rejoicing. We continue now with the Michamocha, the song that Moses and the people Israel sang as they crossed the Sea of Reeds.
Yai dai 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 yada dai dai bim bam yai dai dai yada dai yada dai dai bim bam yai dai 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 yada dai dai bim bam yai dai 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 yada dai dai bim bam mi chamocha bailim Adonai mi chamocha neda bakodesh norat hiloto sefele norat hiloto sefele yai dai 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 yada dai dai bim bam yai dai dai yada dai yada dai dai bim bam.
Now we switch gears a little bit with the evening prayer, Hashkivenu, the Jewish version of Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Grant that we should lie down tonight in peace, Adonai our God, and raise us up tomorrow, O Sovereign, to a life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, and for your name's sake, be our help. Shield us from hatred and plague. Keep us from war, famine, and anguish. Subdue our inclination to evil. O God, our guardian and helper, our gracious and merciful Sovereign, grant us refuge in the shadow of your wings. O guard our coming and our going, that always we have life and peace. We praise you, O God, whose sukkah of peace is spread over us, over all your people, and over Jerusalem. We continue now with the next part of our service, Tefillah. Again, I invite you, rise as you are able.
Adonai Sefer Tiftachu fi Gita Hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Emotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Hanora, El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'socher Chasdei Avot V'imavot, U'mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem, L'man Shemo V'yapa, Melech Hoseh U'Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Yolam Adonai, Mikayeh Hakol Atah Rab L'Mashiach, Mikakel Chaim b'Chesed, Mikayeh Hakol v'Rachamim Rabbi, Somek Noflim v'Rofei Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato Lishenei Apa, Mikamo Haba Gebuhot, U'Mito Melam, Melech Memit, U'Mekayeh, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, Ne'emanata L'chayot HaKol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mikayeh HaKol, Atah Kadosh v'Shemcha Kadosh, U'Kdoshim b'Kol Yom Yalhu Selah, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated, everybody. And our blessing for Shabbat this week is going to be Yismachu v'Malachutacha. We have a number of visitors tonight, so let me explain what we do. Is we do this responsibly. If you've never sung a Hebrew song before in your entire life, you're going to do so now. It's really easy. Trust me. Just stick with me and you'll get the hang of it and repeat what I say, okay? All right, go for it, my friend.
Let me preface by saying that the first part is unison, but then there's responses.
Yeah, so the chorus,
Yeah.
we just sing together.
Yeah. Yismechu. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei honeg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei honeg Shabbat. Mekadasheh, Mekadasheh Shivi Shabbat, Kulam Yispehu, V'yitangu Metu V'cha Shabbat, Yismechu V'malechutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat V'korei honeg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malekutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei honeg Shabbat. Ubhashvi'i ratzita bo v'ktashto Shabbat. Chemdat yamim Yoto kata Shabbat. Yismechu v'malekutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei honei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malekutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei honei Shabbat. Zecher L'maaseh Breshit Shabbat. Zecher L'maaseh Breshit Shabbat. Yismechu v'malekutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei honei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malekutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat v'korei honei Shabbat.
So did you two try it out? Did you do it? You tried? Good, good. How about you? Yeah, all right. See? Come back next week and you can perfect it. All right. We continue now with Reitzeh, asking God to accept who we are and what we pray. Reitzeh Adonai Eloheinu b'amcha Yisrael utefilata b'ahava tikabel. Adonai our God, show favor towards your people and lovingly receive our prayers. May the worship of your people Israel always be acceptable to you, for you alone do we hold in reverence. And Moedim. We give thanks to you, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our lives, the shield of our salvation for every generation. We thank you and we recite your praises. Let all the living affirm you and praise your name as the God of our salvation and health. Praised are you, Adonai. Goodness is your name. All praises to you. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha l'chan elodo. So we close out this part of our service always with a prayer for peace. And we're going to turn page 23, Shalom Rav. And then after that, we're going to take a few moments for our own silent reflections and prayers.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasihim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasihim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon leko hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon leko hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasihim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasihim Leolam. V'tov beineka levarech et Amcha Yisrael. B'chol het u'b'chol sha'ah Bishlomecha. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasihim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasihim Leolam. Tasihim Leolam. Tasihim Leolam. Say shalom bimroma, Uyase shalom aleinu, Ve'al kol Yisrael v'himru amen. Ose shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'himru amen. Yaseh shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ose shalom bimromav. Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'himru amen.
Yasher koach. See, that you didn't see it. You may not have noticed it, but that's why he's the man, is because I love Rabbi Coulter's Shalom Rav, but I don't have the range for it. And he hit every note. So that's great. All right. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about my vacation. All right. Because what else would we talk about? So, New Mexico, that's my stomping ground. Robin and I both grew up there. Albuquerque is our city. And there's a lot of wonderful features about Albuquerque. I think for a relatively middle-sized city, there's a lot going on. 2 days was not enough. You'll have to go back again, take the tram, go down to Old Town, check out the Atomic Museum, lots of great things. But one of the interesting things that always happens, I hadn't really thought about it until this summer, is that in order to get from where we were staying close to the university up to my mother-in-law's house, which is up in what's called the Northeast Heights, the best surface road is a street named Indian School, all right? And you hop on it down there by the university and you just take it right up and it gets you very close to my mother-in-law's house, and then you skip over on Eubank and you're there. Of course, why is it called Indian School? Because that's exactly what was there. There was an Indian school, that is a boarding school designed to take in Native American children and educate them. Now, as we've been hearing in the news up in Canada, we've been confronted by the horrible tragedy that apparently a pretty high percentage of the students at Canadian Indian schools died, probably from neglect, possibly from abuse. And it's a very sobering report, what we've learned. It reminds us of some of the difficulties and terrible things that have happened as part of our attempts to make new nations, whether it be the United States or Canada. Indian School in Albuquerque isn't quite such a dark story. I think it was, could be harsh. It was created by Presbyterians, and then sometime later it was taken over by the US government. It actually functioned when I was a young man, when I was a child in Albuquerque. And it only closed down, I don't know, 1978 or something like that. But over the long period of time, as Native reservations and communities got more say in what was happening, it became a better and better place. But it did have a mixed history. I only remember ever talking directly to one person who attended it, and that person actually thought it was pretty good for a boarding school, and they sort of liked it. So they remembered it with affection, which is nice to hear. This is part of a very mixed history we have about how we related to the first peoples. And really, there was an attempt to, the ugly phrase was kill the Indian and save the man. Teach them English, force them to learn Western habits, separate them from the traditional cultures. And New Mexico has a lot of them. You know, New Mexico is unlike Texas. In Texas, we killed most of our Indians, and the few that we didn't kill, we drove out. New Mexico, basically, we preferred to, you know, in New Mexico, we tended to build a reservation around wherever the Indians happened to be. So there's a lot of Indian communities in New Mexico. There's 19 pueblos. There's 6 other major reservations, Navajos, Comanches, Apaches, 2 Apache reservations, and on it goes. So significant population in New Mexico. And because most of them were left undisturbed, it's a relatively decent history, comparatively speaking. And that's great. But then also coming up on my rabbinic conversation channel, something else related to Native Americans came up. And this is this thing that I'd never heard of before, and it's called a land acknowledgement. And like many other rabbis who were first asked the question about how do you handle land acknowledgements, my answer was, what's a land acknowledgement? It's a thing happening in Canada. I think it started there, where at public events, the Canadians, being just like the nicest people on the entire planet, have now made it a custom to begin a public event by acknowledging that you know, this event is being held on the land of the Huron Indians, or land that was once part of the Cree Nation, or something like that. So at the beginning of every public event, they acknowledge the first peoples who were, quite honestly, displaced. And generally, it is accompanied by an invitation for everyone to be a part of it and to participate. And so the question came up, of all things, should we put a land acknowledgement into the ketubah of a couple getting married? They asked for it. Is that appropriate? Now, I didn't plan for this to be the summer where I had to think about Jewish law all summer long, but 2 weeks ago, we had to deal with the question of what do you do when you have 2 bagel shops competing for your interest, right? And I walked you through the Talmud on the question of competition and that sort of thing. And now I've got the Hatov Hu Maitiv, how do we bless a certain kind of thing that's never been blessed before? And now we've got the question, what do you do about land acknowledgements? I'll be honest with you. When I first heard this idea, I was very hesitant about it. It didn't appeal to me. It seemed like a little bit of self-flagellation on the part of Americans today to constantly invoke the idea that this land was once somebody else's. And maybe it's a little, you know, it's a little too much of a guilt trip. And so my initial reaction was negative. But what can you do? Torah keeps coming up. And this week in our Torah portion, Matot, we are reminded explicitly that we destroyed the Midianites in order to gain control of territory on the east side of the Jordan River. And as I thought about it, and as reading the Torah portion, I went, you know, actually we are pretty clear in our tradition about the fact that we were not the original inhabitants of what became the land of Israel. It is repeatedly referred to as the land of the Canaanites, the people who preceded us. And multiple times throughout the year, we list all 7 of the Canaanite nations that we displaced. The Canaanites, the Hivites, the Jesubites, the Hittites, the Perizzites. How am I doing there? That's 5. Jesubites. Oh gosh. Did I say Hivites? No, okay, that's 6. I can't quite do 7, but it's not for want of trying or not for want of hearing it. And the truth of the matter is, even if some of our sources are kind of apologetic or they claim that, you know, they deserved it, we make a point out of reminding ourselves that there were other people here before us. And in fact, as I sat down with Jewish liturgy and started looking through it a little bit and pondering this question, so it turns out that at the very beginning of when we pray every morning in the prayer that we say for putting on tefillin, traditional Jews talk about how God brought us to the land of the Canaanites, and then goes on to say, you know, list all 7 of the nations that we displaced. And I started thinking to myself, well, look at, if we can do that, maybe it's not so inappropriate every once in a while to acknowledge, as Americans, that there were people here before us. So I flipped myself entirely over in this discussion online from, no way, to, okay, occasionally, why not? Now, what we're arguing about is on what occasions. Apparently, Canadian rabbis do it so often, it's like the Shekianu. They do it all the time. I'm not sure that's what we need. But I think it's good to acknowledge that there is a history that came before. And for those of you who've not thought about it, we are currently meeting on the land that was once the land of the Wichitas, the Caddos, the Comanches, and possibly others that I couldn't identify. And it's okay. You know, probably would be good for the English to occasionally acknowledge that there were once Celts here. You know, we drove the Welsh into Wales and things like that. That is the way of the human experience. And you don't need to apologize it, but it might be a good idea to acknowledge it. And in Jewish tradition, we have actually a longer tradition on that, which is the idea of minhag hamakom, that there's a customary practice for a place. Now, Kol Ami has its customary practices. We've changed them a little bit. You know, it's traditional for us to tear our challah apart rather than cut it, but we've changed that because of COVID. In some communities, people eat their gefilte fish as is, coming right out of the bottle. Other people fry their gefilte fish like Spam. Yes, look at that. I thought you would get that reaction, but that's the minhag of that particular community. You know, famously, if you ask Harry Friedman, who grew up in Clarksville, Mississippi, in Clarksville, Mississippi, Jews served their matzo balls with sawmill gravy. All right, minhag hamakom. And so, you know, it may be that organically it makes a certain sense for us to start incorporating that idea. Remember that at every High Holy Days, we, at the end of the Torah reading, we say a blessing for our community, a blessing for our military, a blessing for the United States, and a blessing for the state of Israel. Would it be so hard for us to say a blessing for the people who once dwelled upon this land? I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. But I think it's worth considering that this idea is at least Jewish adjacent and that we shouldn't dismiss it out of hand. So look at, we live in a land of blessing. Those blessings come with hopefully some sense of obligation and not just privilege. It might become someday the minhag hamakom here in the land of America to acknowledge with gratitude the original residents of the land and therefore inspire us to make the land that we now use as inclusive and welcoming as possible. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. All right, so with that, we do find ourselves at a bit of odds end because we don't have the most important human being in this congregation, Bob. Bob makes everything happen. And so that includes things like the weekly yahrzeit list and stuff like that. So we're gonna have to sort of fudge our way through it. And it's my privilege to invite up Steve, our Executive Vice President, to fudge and make up announcements.
Good evening and Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
With an introduction like that, how could I completely go wrong? Or how could I completely go right? It's all up to me. So just a couple things I would like to say. Welcome to all of our guests and everyone that was able to come out this evening. It's great to see faces and people that I haven't seen in a while. An opportunity to see some new folks as well. So thank you for coming and spending some time with us. Just a couple of announcements that have been on the schedule before, but are still very important to realize is that, yes, presently, we've unshackled Bob from the office and allowed him to take some vacation time in the land of Mickey. So he and his family are enjoying some time away. So during that time, if you happen to call up here to the office, you can still leave a message and someone will get back to you. It just may take a little bit longer. So please pardon us during that time, and we appreciate your patience. A couple other things as a reminder, we do have a clothing donation box here at Congregation Kol Ami in our parking lot. If you happen to be going through and realizing that, boy, it's time for me to do some summer cleaning now that I've done all my spring cleaning, my summer stuff doesn't fit anymore, I've got to get rid of it. We have a clothing donation box out in our parking lot, and we would greatly appreciate you making a donation of hats, shoes, and gently used clothing. Full disclosure here is that we do receive benefit from your donations. So anything that you can donate is greatly appreciated. Those clothes do go on to places where people do need them, and so it's greatly appreciated. Back to School Drive is up and running. The Tucson alum will be gathering school supplies throughout the month of July as part of the Denton County Friends of the Family School Service Drive. A full list of needed supplies can be found on our website. Donations can be brought to the shul for the month and left in the office. Alternatively, home pickup of donations can be arranged. They are also looking for volunteers from August 2nd through 7th to help fill backpacks. So that's a great opportunity to see some of your fellow community members and help do a great cause. So please reach out to our Vice President of Tikkun Alum, Melissa Tapana, for more information and any questions that you might have. Another event that's up and running, I believe still, and Rabbi, we still have good dates for this, so this is good, is Taste of Judaism. You're invited to join us for 3 free classes exploring a modern Jewish take on spiritual values and community here in our Jewish community. Our classes are dynamic and interactive. Our teacher is accessible, engaging, and virtually impossible to offend. So that's a great way to come and ask, well, why is that way? And see what he has to say, or she may have to say, depending on who happens to be answering questions for you. If you have friends or family that would like to attend, we have 1 lesson left. The session is made up of 3 meetings, actually. The remaining sessions will occur July 11th, 13th. Sunday evening, and at 7 p.m. You can get all the details and sign up for the program on our congregational website. The CKA Book Clubbers are hosting, let me see if this is still current before I read on too much. Oh, it is. This one's still good.
Yes.
Yeah, Howard J. Smith, author of Meeting Mozart, a novel dawn from the secret diaries of Lorenz de Point. If you enjoy history, particularly 18th century history and shenanigans of the European court. Who doesn't like a good shenanigans? Yeah. So if you like Mozart, if you like mysteries, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's got to be fantastic.
Yeah. So it's, hey, July 20th, 7 p.m. on our Zoom meeting. Check on our CKA website for more information around that. As always, Yes, please.
Just because they make it on because it pops out. Religious school signups are still happening and are active. Religious school will be starting soon. My wife, Miss Casey, is the director of the religious school. Those of you who are affiliated with religious school knows me as Mr. Casey. Religious school signups are up. We look forward to everybody having a great religious school year. I'm teaching 6th grade this year, so it'll be super fun.
Thank you, Samson. Appreciate it. I'm sorry, Mr. Casey. All right. So at this point, as is customary here at Congregation Kol Ami, we'd like to offer a Misha Barak to those in need of healing. Is there anyone here who would like to add a name to our list of those who would like to need healing? Okay. May those who have blessed our ancestors also bless Harry Anthony, Natalie Brovino, Michelle Burke, Karen Buxbaum, Shannon Child, Maxine Collins, Sandy Cook, David Cook, Jerry Dietz, Gordon Ellison, Tammy Ferris, Debbie Freed, Michelle Griffith, James Hart, Ken Hirschman, Jody Hoffman, Jeff and Lauren Kay, Deb Kaufman, Lauren Koenig, Alex Koenig, Susan Lee, Sandy Letzner, Ron Meyerson, Karen Moore, Canicole, Lon Neff, Herbert Paley, Paul Redwood Jr., Sandy Garber Rubin, Adrian Sandler, Myra Schussler, Michelle Renfro Tucker, and Patricia Ducar. If you could please join us for singing Misha Barak. If you happen to have a copy of your program, it's on the back of the program or it's on page, I don't remember. 40, thank you. I should have that ingrained up here, but I do not. Misha Barak Avotenu Mekor Habraha Vihotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Barak Imotenu Bechor Habraha Imotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
So for those many visitors here, if you've been dazzled by this evening, you're welcome to come on Sunday evening, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday for our Taste of Judaism, just to learn a little bit about the Jewish people. If it intrigues you, you're welcome to join us. Also, are you going to be conducting your Dungeons and Dragons game this Sunday?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Well, you should know that Avi bought you a gift in appreciation for running these games. I think you'll like it, but if you don't tell him. Okay.
My 6th grade class is also going to be Dungeons & Dragons.
Oh, there we go. Excellent. No, a Jewish-based Dungeons and Dragons is a much-needed educational experience as far as I'm concerned. So that's fantastic. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to invite you to turn to page 82. And we're going to rise together as able to do the Aleinu and Kaddish. Page 82. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, l'teiknu al Yosef Reshit, shelo asanu goyei haratzot, velo samanu כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. Next page. שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו, וקובעים הרומיים, הוא אלוהינו הינו, אמת הלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, יראת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים,
בשמיים ממעל, בארץ הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ביום ההוא
יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Alas, I don't have a current yard site list for this week. We can tell you some other things, but if you have a name to include, please do so. And I apologize to anybody who will not have the name of their loved one read this week because of technical difficulties. We begin on page 84 in honoring those we've lost. The leaves fall from afar. They fall with slow and lingering descent. And in the night, the heavy earth too falls from out of the stars and into the solitude. And thus all must fall. This hand of mine must fall. And lo, the other. It is the law. But there is one who holds the falling infinitely softly in his hand, in her hands. And so it is we take the time to recall with love and gratitude the names of those individuals whom we've recently lost, as well as those whose yard sites or anniversaries of death occur this week. We have no names that I'm aware of for Shiva, people who have died in the last 7 days. Is there anybody who's lost someone in the last week? If so, please share the name with us. For Shloshim, we join with Elizabeth Cohen, who's mourning for the death of her mother, Jackie Tucker, and we also join with Michelle Tell, who is grieving for her uncle, Alan Strauss, both of whom died this past month. Is there anybody else observing Shloshim, having lost someone in the last 30 days?
You should probably think about those who have suffered at Surfside before.
Thank you for the community of people, many Jews, but also many non-Jews who died in the collapse of that apartment building. Thank you. For yard site, unfortunately, I don't have this week's list. Is there anybody with? Oh, that's going to be probably a little too. Oh, well, you know what? You've got him lit up. Go for it, man. This is why he's president. We do have 3 names lit up, so let's hear what they are.
Susan Spielman, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Loretta Kruger,
Thank you.
and my mother-in-law, Marion Devo.
Lovely. Thank you. Is there anybody else who is aware of a yard site or anniversary of death in their family among their loved ones? Thank you. Thank you. It's our custom here at Congregation Kol Ami to honor the memory of all these people. We hope that for those who mourn, that memory grows sweeter as the years pass by. And we ask as a community together, we rise and we recite Kaddish on page 85. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'galal uv'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalei v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'elma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah mim shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom Aleinu val kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. And let us say, please be seated, everyone. So did you have a closing song that you would like to lead?
I
figured you could do Hine Matov.
Hine Matov is a lovely choice. How pleasant and good it is when brethren are gathered together in unity. So, Hine Matov, I bet you'll find it.
It's on page 100.
100.
On page 100. Okay, we're going to do Hine Matov on page 100, Psalm 131. Hine matov u'menayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'menayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'menayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'menayim shevet achim gam yachad.
So if you go to Exodus 25, you discover how this all works. We are told that the elders and Moses and the priests were all summoned to Mount Sinai, and there they stood and they saw God, and then they ate and drank. All right, and that's how we've been doing it ever since. We've had our chance to commune with God, and now it's time for us to drink and eat. We do it in a little different order. And so we're going to begin with Kiddush, a blessing for wine. And is that on page 86, 86? If you need to follow along, it's on page 86. Wine is a symbol of joy, and it marks our celebration of this sacred day that God has given us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila l'mekra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim kivanu v'chata ve'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. L'chaim. I'm sorry, because of COVID, we're not giving out general issued wine, but I urge you all to rush home as quickly as possible and to drink as much wine as you can. Now, another interesting thing I discovered returning from vacation is our microwave is broken. So I couldn't thaw out the usual challah that we have in reserve. So my beloved eldest son agreed to cut his challah in half at home. And what you're going to be getting here is a Dennis-made challah, or half of a Dennis-made challah. So, you know, you've got to improvise, adapt, overcome. It works for the British Special Air Service. It works for us. Do be aware that I am vaccinated, but we won't be tearing our bread. I'll hand it out to you. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, a blessing for sustenance. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Now, it's not just bread. I also have individually packed